اکتیو بودم کار میکردم فعالیت داشتم.
The Islamic Republic, the morality police have been enforcing those rules for 4 decades. Their confrontations with young women on many occasions have led to verbal abuse and physical violence.
22-year-old Masa Amini died in police custody back in September. Iranians have been protesting with women.
Media censorship.
And welcome to this week's meeting. Sanal Edamaruku speaking. I'm Shubhi Sinha, heading the youth wing of Rationalists International. So now coming to the topic, Afghanistan, Iran, and the future of our civilization. And I feel like this is such an important topic for today. And for that, I would like to call Mr. Sanal Edamaruku to present his take on this and give us an insight of what is happening. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Shubhi. Thank you, everyone who is attending this meeting on Clubhouse as well as on Zoom. You can come on any of this platform. I mean, you can ask questions, you can comment on things, you can even send messages on a small comment box on the Zoom, wherein you can write your messages and send also, and that will be responded after the primary presentation. Now coming to the topic. Recently, after several days of struggle that was going on in Iran, we started hearing a new news. It says the controversial morality police is now gone. It stopped. It's going to be dismantled. I have started hearing even rationalists and freethinkers and atheists across generally appreciating the move and even considering that as a great victory of the struggle that has been going on. Let me start from there. Has the morality police gone away? Has Iran decided to butt to the demand of the women who have been struggling for 3 slogans? So what I was trying to explain to you was about the ground reality in Iran, while the propaganda in full swing going on that the morality police has been demolished and dismantled. That's what Iranian Attorney General Mohammad Jafar Montazeri has announced. But what was the reality? He also said that there is a second part of the whole statement, that the judiciary will continue to monitor the public conduct. The announcement is a clear acknowledgement that the toll of the demonstrations have taken to the regimes in September. But I mean, this struggle, so you all know that the 22-year-old Kurdish Iranian woman, Marza Amini, was killed just because a part of her hair was out, though she was even wearing hijab. Now, how people reacted to that, all around the streets of Iran, women came out. They celebrated by cutting short their hair. They've taken off their hijab. They chanted slogans for their liberty and freedom and equality. And this has been going on for several months. Many people thought this will be over very fast. This will be ending very fast, and people will simply ending the struggle after some days or some weeks. But that was not the case. The struggle was not ending, it was continuing despite the brutal suppression these people have been trying to work upon these people. There have been shootings, there have been arrests, there have been police lathi charges, there have been grenades thrown against the demonstrators by the police, but nothing could stop them. More and more women came to the streets, but not only women, but men also. Students mainly. And it was originally, some people tried to, argue that this was just a Kurdish problem. No, it was not like that. It started in the Kurdish area of Iran, but it spread all around and everywhere, including in the city of Tehran. the struggle was going on and people were on the streets. We could sometimes see several days continuing live shows on YouTube what was happening. Also, you have to remember that the social media is totally stopped in Iran. There is no Facebook, there is no Twitter, there is no TikTok, and nothing is possible. Everything is blocked. Still, they have their own ways to reach out people. They write small notes and drop at homes. Flash mobs join together unexpectedly. Authorities cannot even imagine from there these people are coming. People open the doors and come out to the streets and they sing and dance and shout slogans. Police come and threaten them. No, nothing works. That has gone into a new direction lately, which was not only limited to fight for the right to, live without a hijab, but also to live without the authority of Islam. They started rejecting Islam in their slogans. They started denouncing the regime. They wanted a total change of the system. They wanted the Islamic Republic to go. And that has been sustaining, remaining, despite meantime, more than 400 people killed. And 16,000 people in jail now. 16,000. Still the struggle is going on. And the general idea is that any struggle, after some time, it loses its momentum. It cannot sustain. It cannot continue because the energy level or the kind of drive in the people would go down very fast. But what we see is that it's not going down. It's spreading from one area to the other. Despite the suppression, despite the arrest, despite the kind of police atrocities, they are continuing. Now, one major thing that is important at this stage is how the authorities would be, at the end of the day, responding to this. Will they be able to overthrow the government, overthrow the system, and change, reverse the Iranian Islamic Revolution that happened in 1979? Or will they be able to get their rights within the framework of the Iranian Islamic system? But the demand is very clearly against the present president, who earlier was a judge, was regularly ordering executions of people. And you have seen some former presidents very clearly saying that, the struggle should be respected. There are people speaking in favor of the struggle, but within the framework. And it is at this stage, we have seen this statement coming from General Mohammad Jafar Mondesari that the guidance patrol of the morality police is going. But it's a very vague statement, number one, and it has no official approval. There is no formal decision in that direction. And the Iranian television, which is not reported outside, I'm in direct contact with the people who are behind this struggle, who are practically sitting in London and monitoring the struggle, who are from Iran and part of the greater movement that has been mobilizing support for the Iranian struggle. And very clearly, in Iran, the television channels are stating that this public statement that is circulating in the world, that the morality police has gone, is not correct. They've denied it already. Because they wanted the world to breathe and feel, they wanted to a little bit appease them, make a feeling, they wanted to give a feeling that, well, they are budging to the situation. But that's not the reality. Even in the statement of Mondesari, he was telling that instead, the judiciary will take over this responsibility of controlling women. That's how it was going on. Now, as we all know, there is a new step, which is a very clear, shocking thing, that the parliament passed a resolution. It has approved the harshest possible punishment to those who are in jail, who were in the forefront of the struggle and who were arrested. At that time, there were 14,000 people in the jail. Now it's almost 16,000 people. So there is already an approval from the parliament that they could get the harshest possible punishments. And what's the harshest possible punishment? That's nothing less than execution. So they have a mandate from the parliament for executing any number of people who are in the struggle. So getting this approval or mandate from the parliament, people thought what would happen. So they slowly started showing what they intend to. Maybe they want to just scare only. Maybe they want to execute some people only and get maybe an apology from the other people and scare them. Probably that was what was intended. Or they may even try to execute a large number of people, as they have done at the beginning of the establishment of the Islamic Republic. Whatever is the objective behind, at this moment, we know that they started some execution. And one major execution that has happened a couple of days was the execution of a very young man, and who was one of the initiators of this struggle. And if you are on Twitter, you can see his last words before he was getting executed. He said in that statement, he said that, "Don't mourn my death. Don't cry for me. Don't come to my grave with your Quran. Don't recite Quran, but instead celebrate with the singing songs." That's not the exact words, but that's the meaning of what he said. And he has bravely gone to the gallows. That was inspiring for a lot of people, but a young, brilliant man of 23 years was just executed. And what is the message they are trying to give with that? Very clearly, they want to show that they don't mind executing any number of people. That's why, they have very clearly got the mandate and publicized it. Another set of information that was coming from the jail. Anybody who is in the jail, there are at least 16 more people who got already the punishment, and it's only to be executed, and how they are handled. Most of them are giving a kind of an apology, accepting the crime. They don't deny it. And how is it extracted? One statement coming from a family member who got one information from the jail is as follows. They are blindfolded and they are taken on a stool and a noose is tied on their neck. And then they would be told that they would be hanged now. An announcement is made that the stool is going to be removed. No, but they won't be. They're scared. Then they're taken down. This will repeat several days. They get completely crazy, upset, shocked. They don't know what to do. And some of them get the control of their mind. They are on the brink of suicide. Then they extract a kind of acceptance of the allegations or the charges, and then getting the verdict upon them. It's a very clever strategy. They're making all ways of pressure on these people. What the people in jail, the 16,000 people now, what kind of jail they are in, what kind of situation they are going through, it's not clear outside. Only one thing is clear. Most of them are not getting proper food. They are permanently told about the verdict, practically the approval given by the parliament to give harshest punishment to anybody who is involved in this struggle. And they are repeatedly told about this. And one day, when they just execute one or two people, people are relieved. After the parliament statement that all the prisoners can be executed. A few days later, 4 people were executed. In fact, many people were relieved. Oh, all the people at that time, 15,000 people, they were not killed. Only 4 people were killed now. That's what they want. They give an impression that they would be giving a mass execution process. And apparently they will identify a lot of people and eliminate them. And probably a lot of youngsters would perish in this process. But if you look at the history of the struggle that has been happening in Iran, there have been uprising, not only now, but at several times in the past. In 2019, there was an uprisal. In 2020, there was an uprisal. It's an ongoing struggle. The present struggle is one of the latest ones in the process, because that was connected with the Mahsa Amini's death. But before that, there have been at least a dozen struggles, which eventually got slowed down or got suppressed. But the repeated appraisals, despite the showdown on these people, despite the attack on them, despite the arrest, despite the harsh punishments, it gives an impression that they are not going to cow down. Amnesty International uses very harsh language to respond to the situation. Not only on the principle against death penalty, but also about the right of the people. But not only Amnesty International, almost all the nations in the world who would take such a situation seriously and responding to it. There is condemnation about the kind of suppression on these people. But it's going on. And after this young man of 23 years executed now, you know that the Iranian team in the World Cup soccer tournament, they have expressed their protest against the Iranian regime, and they have responded. They did not stand up to the national anthem of Iran when it was sung. And what would be waiting for them is not very clear, but another soccer player in Iran is now facing execution. There are reports that he's executed, but he's yet to be executed, but the conviction is already made and he can be executed any day. And the world over, there's a shock. What would be waiting for the Iranian football team when they are finally facing the regime there? The general impression that this regime wants to give is a simple strategy that most of the authoritarian and totalitarian governments implement. When they actually overthrow the authority of a person because he's a celebrity, or the glory of a person because he's a celebrity, they push a person who is a celebrity without fear. That would give a shock all around. Killing the giant. That's something most of these regimes would do. A person who is a symbol of the struggle, who is very popular, who can be shown as a leader of the kind of movement, and whose death can be a shockwave to the country, is what they would be selecting. It's not just random people they are killing. Especially look at the recent hanging. They have selected a person who is a very clear symbol of the struggle, who was very strongly tweeting and campaigning and speaking for the struggle, to mobilize the whole thing. And for a long time. And when he was taken, he was told many times he would be killed, he will be assassinated, he will be hanged. And finally, when he is taken to death, the nation could not believe it. Because that was a summary trial. in 3 days, it was decided that he has waged a war against Allah. And what he was struggling was for the right of the women to walk around without hijab. On the other side, you have to also understand that Iranian regime is not a legitimate government. It came to power without an election in the beginning. It overthrew a government, then established a regime with a certain laws which did not get a sanction of the people. More than 50% of the Iranian population are not approving this government as per the Gallup study a couple of years back. And almost all the Iranians who have escaped from Iran and living abroad stand up against Iran's regime. Even inside Iran, 30 to 35% of the people do not want to follow a life according to the orders of Quran or Sharia. They want to have a free life of their choice. But the system would not allow anybody to come up. There's a very brutal and authoritarian way of governing. It's a classical case of a modern theocracy where there is a religious cleric above all elected parliamentary members. The supreme commander has to approve or sign any parliament decision. He can even dissolve the parliament. He can dismiss the premier, and he can just refuse to accept any law passed. Clearly, it's a regime controlled by the clerics. And the morality police is directly under the supreme commander. That's a very brutal one. There are other ways of controlling people also. There are other agencies also directly under the supreme commander. So he's a superpower above the parliament, above the system, and his sanction is, he's a religious, his sanction is, the power is, the source of his power is coming from his religious position as the supreme authority of the religious community. So therefore, Iran is not a totalitarian state. It's a theocracy. It's a democratic theocracy in a way, but it is very clearly the democracy is established with certain conditions that can run only with the approval of the theocratic system. If you don't accept Quran, if you want to question the Islamic authority, if you want to put an alternative position, if you want to establish an alternative political party, well, you are not allowed to do it. So that's the kind of political system they have. And the challenge now from these young students or youngsters all around Iran is not only for the right to run without a hijab, but overthrowing the regime. That's the change. That's the difference of the present struggle than what was happening earlier. Earlier struggles were focusing on more rights, but this time they are focusing on overthrowing the government, but focusing on the right as the starting point, and it spreads. And now the major statement, for example, the leader of the struggle who was now hanged, look at that statement: don't read Quran on my grave. It's a rejection of the foundation of the faith of the Iranian system. His death is a very big loss at one side, but it's going to be an inspiration for a lot of people. It's going to charge people who are already without any fear, willing to die and go forward to see that the system changes. If you go to the YouTube or the internet, you can see a lot of interesting videos, segments of the struggle from different places. One of the major things that is going on everywhere is the toppling of the headgear of the clerics. For clergymen, the Iranian clergymen have a kind of a cap, a big cap, a white colored cap, And if a person is going with this cap, youngsters who are on the road or on a public transport, they would come and just topple this cap. A clear symbol of their dislike against this clergyman, a clear symbol that the fight is not for just the right to run without hijab, but it's a fight against the theocracy that has been imposed upon the people. But what would happen now? What would that mean to the world? Let's go to Afghanistan for a moment before going into that point. Afghanistan, the neighbor, is not a friendly nation to Iran. They have conflicts. They have border disputes. There are other, religious issues also, because one is a Sunni-based theology that is going on in power in Afghanistan, whereas in Iran, it is Shia religious clerics who are in power. But both are clear religious regimes, but two different formats. But you see that the second Taliban, if you want to call it a revolution or overthrowing of the power or capturing of the power, had a different image in the beginning. Or the apologists all around the world who wanted to justify what was going on in Afghanistan tried to explain to us, well, the Taliban regime number 2 would be different than the earlier one. I've heard former diplomats who served in Iran and who are experts speaking in that tone. It will be different. Women will have their rights, and there'll be human rights guaranteed, all these kind of explanations given. But you have seen that in villages, the local Taliban groups were so active, they go into villages with their raiding efforts, and they started punishing locally, stoning people to death, killing people by shooting on their head, just because the feet were seen when they have been wearing a full niqab. Or another brutal thing which I've seen, was a girl who had nail polish on her fingers, which is not allowed. So she was lucky. She got only the hand chopped off with a brutal knife. And of course, tar was boiling in another vessel. After the cutting, that was dipped into that, so that there is no way of fixing or anything is possible later. So these kind of things were going on at different parts in Afghanistan. And Afghanistan has a different, economic structure, which is different than Iran. Iran has a big revenue source, which is the petroleum. So they are a rich country because they can sell petroleum. They can sell petroleum to any number of countries, despite the whole sanctions upon Iran. They are producing still petrol and they are selling it. But Afghanistan, the economy's key resource was opium. And the opium lords who were in control of the opium fields would influence the whole political system whomsoever is in power. Who has influence upon the opium lords would have power there. It's very clearly known that by principle, the present regime is against opium. Opium lords are controlling the situation, and they are giving money to the system to survive. And on the other side, they try to formalize the regime with their way of Islamic Republic. Number one, all women were asked to remain at home. No one is allowed to work anywhere. So all executives, all teachers, all other people who were working in different offices, they were all asked to go back to their home and remain there. So that will be considered later, but first thing, they all are back. If you go out, you should wear a completely covering niqab, and you should be accompanied by a male, and that can be your husband, your brother, or closest relative. If not, it's a crime. You cannot show your face, you cannot show your hands, you cannot show your feet. Second thing, they started girls of stopping going to schools. First, all girls in colleges were asked to go back. It's only male now. Now in schools, after primary school, the girls are not allowed to go to any school. There were some schools functioning with girls in the higher standards going on, but that's all stopped now. They promised that they will reconsider the whole thing and they would make a new system of education. It was promised and promised, but it's almost a year and girls are remaining at home. They have no school, they have no possibility of work, and they cannot go out all alone. That's the system in Afghanistan. But the promised new Taliban was never coming, and it is brutal than the earlier one. With all the resources what they have, the military resources that they have, all the weapons the Americans have abandoned are in their custody. Most of them are not used because they do not know how to use it. But the actual living situation in Afghanistan has gone unbelievably down. So as per a report of the Afghanistan situation is evaluated by UN Human Rights Commission. So it's 55% of the population, that is more than 24.4 million people, are in need of humanitarian assistance. And that is more than 30% increase from the last year. They are not responsible for the situation there. The power was bestowed upon them. But the people, because of the situation, are suffering. They are hungry. There is no water. And most of the parents find it difficult to stop crying children. Instead, they go to medical shops, buy sleeping pills, and make small pieces and give to children so that they don't cry. They just sleep. Or get small opium tablets and give to children so that they don't cry. And what's the status of this population eventually? You have to understand that Afghanistan, it's a dire situation. 40 years of war now. There is a rising poverty, and there is no food production properly. And because of the sanction, nothing is really coming over there. And the displacement of people in Afghanistan, different provinces, that's more than 700,000 people. The United Nations estimates speaks about altogether, perhaps 9 million people could be displaced from their place now. This displacement crisis is the largest in 7 decades of human history now. In the last 7 decades, we didn't have anything of this sort. After the Second World War, we didn't have anything of this sort. What does this mean? The people in Afghanistan, there is no struggle. Occasionally, there are some uprising in the city, and it's immediately suppressed down. There are shouting people coming out occasionally. They're brutally suppressed. They're taken in immediately in the jail. Then beyond the borders, there are almost 6 million Afghans in the neighboring countries scattered. And of them, they are in Iran, near the border, just outside the border of Afghanistan, some in Pakistan, and there are registered refugees. The number is 2.5 million. And there is acute hunger. over the half the population, 23 million people are in acute food insecurity. There is, if emergency food is not given to these people, a million children would be perishing with severe malnourishment. They're not bothered about these kind of things. They're bothered about establishing an Islamic republic the way they think is right. That women are kept, especially inside, male dominated. And this situation is going to perish a major part of the Afghan population in the near future. So what should be done at this moment? At one side, there is sanction, but the other side, there is a necessity of giving the poor people humanitarian assistance. But the critical necessity of giving humanitarian assistance would include, for example, giving them blankets or solar lanterns or basic, heating facilities, because it's a very cold country, especially in winter. And okay, these are the primary survival things. And on the other side, women's rights are to be recognized. This can only be addressed by the world community when they recognize the rights of women and people. The fundamental human rights are to be respected by these authorities. No amount of pressure that is given by the world by applying all these sanctions are not working. They are not bothered about it. They want to please Allah, not the people. And with this kind of a situation, no country can thrive for a long time. And the people in such countries, you cannot go like this. By half of the population hunger and starving, and people who have to suffer because of a regime bestowed upon them without their choice, and there should be a solution. There have been war in Afghanistan. The Western powers have been trying to change Afghanistan, which was not successful. And most of the Afghanis were happy when there was an effort from the Western army at that time after September 11. They thought a new regime is coming, but the new regime could not survive. What happened in Afghanistan is another question, which is not the point of discussion in this meeting. What I wanted to suggest is Afghanistan and Iran are two places where we see what religion can make to the life of people. These two are great civilizations, in fact. Afghanistan was part of a great civilization, part of the greater empires for a long time, and that was in the center of several empires in the past. Iran has the great tradition of the Persian Empire, which was the center of culture and civilization for millenniums. But everything seems to be in peril now. But what happens in Afghanistan and what happens in Iran cannot be left there. And we cannot be just ignoring it. And we cannot simply close our eyes and think about other things and sing songs. What should be done in Iran? What should be done in Afghanistan should be a serious concern of people all across the world. Because if this kind of a regime can survive in Afghanistan, and if this kind of a regime can survive in Iran without any challenge, despite the people's wish to change it, that would be a very bad lesson to many other parts of the world. Imagine, in Saudi Arabia, which is not theocracy, but a totalitarian monarchy without even elections. Saudi Arabia does not have a theocracy, but it's a monarchy, but Islamic rule. But they are trying to liberalize things. They try to give at least an impression that now women can drive. All around the world, women were driving all these decades and centuries now since cars came. But now they don't have an election except at a very local level. Now women were allowed to vote. There was a very big news. So that's the kind of the pace of changes. And people are sometimes celebrating, oh, now women are allowed to vote in the local councils. For the national leadership, there is no election. So Saudi Arabia still tried to change. They try to open up. They try to get exposed to the modern way of life so that no such uprising is possible. That's an impression coming at one side. the other side, including Saudi Arabia, Iran, and Afghanistan, and most of the, United Arab Emirates, there are 27 countries in this world where you cannot criticize the religious authority of the country or the majority faith in the country. You can get a death punishment. In many countries, that's not implemented, but there are laws, and that's implemented also in some countries. Starting from Sudan to Indonesia to, all these countries, there are 27 countries, there is a list of countries who would give death punishment to anybody who would challenge the faith of the majority. What we have to understand is that there should be a change in this world. There should be a change for the basic rights of the people. I would say that, it would be a wonderful world if religions go, but I would like to be realistic. I would like to I would like to wish at least at this moment to have a situation that people can have their conscience without the fear of persecution, without the fear of execution. But beyond that, the clean rights of people to walk in the streets freely, to drive around, to dress up the way we want, even that is denied, and that is insisted, and that's taken as a symbol of the political authority in countries like Afghanistan and Iran. If these brutal regimes succeed to win over the resistance that is building up at different parts, in Afghanistan also there is a resistance movement coming up, though it is suppressed. But in Afghanistan, the same method that Iran tries to communicate to the people can be seen. A few days back, they had the first public execution. That's not in connection with the faith or Quran or anything. A person who was accused of murdering somebody else, he was taken to a public place, and the top political authorities in the country sit to watch the scene, and the whole locality is announced, come and witness the execution of these people. And the person who was killed, the father of the person, was given the gun, and he would shoot the accused person or the convicted person in public, with the political leadership of the country sitting, watching it, clapping along with the people. This is clearly giving a signal. So there are uprising at different parts of the Afghanistan, small groups coming up and asking for their rights, asking for their food, asking for their fundamentals, but they don't respond to that. They suppress it. On the other side, they clearly say, though they said that they have stopped public execution and whipping and stoning to death, they publicly now make an execution, which is a very clear lesson, very clear warning to all those people who are trying to raise their voice. So in Afghanistan, it's by killing some people, they show a model, what we would be doing. Another statement comes along with that is that any kind of fight against the state or authority would be taken as a fight against the God. It's a similarity with what the Iranians would speak. Everybody who is taken in police custody or who are in jail, the charge that is accused of them is rioting, fighting, but waging a war against the God. Waging a war against God is something they think is very easily put upon people, as if the God cannot protect himself, and these people have to protect the God from somewhere. And they put the charge of waging the war against God, which calls for death penalty. And that's the same sentence, same words that the Afghanistan authorities use against those people who are raising their voice. Two different versions of Islam, but the method of oppression is almost the same. How should the world react to it? The world should react to it very seriously at one side, but also we should find a way that the people are not suffering, that the humanitarian aid would reach the people, but not giving any kind of strength to the state on the other side. And this has to be addressed. There should be public opinion coming up every part of the world that this is not possible in this century. There should be very strong condemnation in all possible ways all around the world about what is happening in Afghanistan and Iran. It shall not become a model. It shall not become an inspiration for anybody. That level of strong condemnation should rise up all around the world to stop these brutal regimes. I would decide that I would not buy any product that has any Iranian connection. I mean, if people start rejecting anything that is coming from Iran and Afghanistan, that's one way of resisting. And I mean, most of the states are trying to stop them by making sanctions. But of course, people make compromises because of the economic and political compulsions to make strict action from all around the world, force these governments to come to a level of accepting human rights. There should be a global kind of uniform approach, a consensus, a global consensus to develop. And that shall be the immediate task that should develop. And for that, there should be public opinion raising everywhere. We should write articles, we should write posts, we should use social media, we should communicate to people and encourage people and tell the story everywhere. And we should do everything possible to keep the word in currency, to keep it in discussion. And reaching out people, raising public opinion is one of the ways that can force systems to react to it. So we have to be seriously worried, and we have to do everything humanly possible to stop these regimes, suppressing the people and closing the ways of our civilization's onward march. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Sanal sir. And now we would be moving on to any questions or doubts if any of the participants have. We'll take up questions from Zoom and Clubhouse both. So if you want, you can write your questions, or you can also raise your hand through the icon, and we would give you we would unmute you for the same. Kunjama Matthew with us. If you could just unmute yourself.
Thank you very much. The talk was great. I still remember once before the agitation of Iran that you told us there is a lot of people want to get out from Muslim faith, a good percentage. That day I was wondering, is it there like that? Now it is proven, it is there. People want to get up their basic faith and to be free. And the agitation is going on close to 2 months, I think, and several murders. And even general people are attacking their security force also. We cannot, we have to accept that too. 7,000 people, security forces attacked, I think. But, I think the regime is afraid of people. Their movements, they think they might get toppled out or something. But I don't think there is at present there is no end to this. They are all very well dedicated, and they are accepting any kind of fate. They are going to get hope and wish they get their freedom and to be free somehow. And same thing happened in Afghanistan also, but it is not as violent as it seems in Iran. Since this terrorist form of attacking people, I think the United States held $3.5 billion is kind of tied up for Iraq, for the Afghanistan.
Not going to on the Zoom.
So what I wish, I don't know All I wish the people of Iran get their freedom sooner than later. And outsiders like us, we can only hope and discuss. I think this kind of talk we need to keep on and kind of giving them some kind of support and courage. This is all. I don't have a question. I feel bad. I think we all feel bad what's happening in there. That's this Shia Muslim majority, or I think Muslim population mostly are Sunnis, and India has a very little percentage of Shia Muslim. Everybody else is Sunni Muslims, and they have little more freedom, I think. Even though all these cultures and all originated from Egypt, then they all take their own ways. Now we are in this path. I hope some kind of relief, some kind of pain relief, wish and hope happen in Iran. That's all. Thank you for the time.
In the earlier meetings, I've been speaking about the dissatisfied people in Iran. And as I was in contact with many people in Iran, I mean, especially the ex-Muslim movement, I mean, the people who left Islam and came to different parts of Europe, I'm very closely connected with them. So therefore, I had a very close understanding about what was happening in Iran. And also there are people, for example, in India, I had other examples, people coming to study dances in Delhi, for example. They come to study some other thing. But I was sometimes the president of a Kathakali center in Delhi. There were at least half a dozen Iranian girls studying dance there, which is against the faith. So I've talked to all these people every time, and I understood that there is a huge population in Iran who want to celebrate life like any other people outside the free world. But now it's coming out. Yes, we all are concerned about the situation. That's precisely what she was telling, that she's concerned and worried. But also she feels that it's mainly a Shia problem, but Sunnis are more liberal, which is not correct, actually. In Afghanistan, the brutal regime is a Sunni regime. Saudi Arabia, the monarchy, I mean, though it looks little more civilized or living in cooperation with the rest of the world, but the internal regime is very, very authoritarian. That's also Sunni. There is no difference between Sunni or Shia or anything. Any religion, it's not only part of Islam. Any religion can go this way. Any religion can produce this kind of approach. In history, we have seen from all different religions, very brutal regimes. And now it's limited. Islam is one of the major dangerous political religions at this moment. But there are opinions and views coming out. There is an uprising in these countries, which is a ray of hope. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. I think I would suggest you to go from Clubhouse once and then enter again, and then probably your technical issues would be improved. The second person that we have is KCR Menon. If you could unmute yourself.
ഹലോ സനൽജി, എനിക്ക് ഒരു ചോദ്യമുള്ളത്, എങ്ങനെയാണോ ക്രിസ്തുമതത്തിന് ശേഷം ഒരു ഇസ്ലാം മതം രൂപപ്പെട്ടത്, അതുപോലെ ഇന്നത്തെ ഇസ്ലാമിൽ നിന്ന് മറ്റൊരു മതത്തിന്റെ ഒരു സ്റ്റാർട്ടിങ്ങിലുള്ള ഒരു പ്രസവവേദനയായിട്ടുള്ള ഇന്നത്തെ ഈ സംഭവങ്ങളെ നമുക്ക് കാണാൻ കഴിയുന്നത്. മതത്തിന്റെ ഒരു പുനർജന്മമല്ല, അതിന് ഡൈവേഴ്സിറ്റി വന്ന് മറ്റൊരു മതമായിട്ട് രൂപപ്പെടുന്നതിന്റെ, അതായത് മറ്റൊരു കുഞ്ഞ്, ഇസ്ലാമിന് മറ്റൊരു കുഞ്ഞ് പിറക്കുന്നത് മാതിരിയുള്ള ഒരു അന്തരീക്ഷമല്ല ഇപ്പൊ നാം കാണുന്നത്.
That was a question in one language in India, which is known as Malayalam. Happens to be my mother tongue, but most of the people know whether they would understand the language. Therefore, I briefly translate what he asked. He asked, Islam was coming, I mean, after Judaism and Christianity, from the same strain came Islam. But this new uprising, will it create, is it a call for a new religion? Will there be a change to that direction? So the answer shall be very simple. Now, in this century, most of the people in the world have come to a situation to understand that we can live without religion, altogether without any religion. Because that kind of an idea did not exist earlier. people always thought that when they leave one religion, they have to go to another religion. They have to create a new religion. The last known religions, major religion came from India, that is the religion of Sikh religion. That was again some 700 years back. So no major new religions were coming up, in the contemporary times, because a lot of people started understanding that either they remain in their traditional faith, or if they remain in the religion without the faith, or leave the religion altogether. More and more people all around the world are leaving religion to be free individuals without any religion. Their number is increasing everywhere in the world. And every kind of studies show that more and more people are leaving the faith and trying to live a happy life without any religion, but without any prejudice to people who are in the religion. Say, kind of respecting others, whatever they believe, they can remain in there. But if you want to leave religion, that is what we try to insist also. Everybody who wants to leave a religion should be allowed without persecution or without any kind of fear of attack to live without religion. But that's not allowed. That's the only problem. But if it's possible, if it's legally possible, if it's practically possible, if crowds don't attack you, as it happens in many countries, I'm sure that more and more people would leave religion and would live with a free mind without the fear of consequences, which are offered in the name of God, or the fear of consequences which are actually given by the representatives of God on earth. Thank you very much.
So I think there are no more questions anymore. And thank you, sir, for telling it so nicely about what it is and how important it is to voice it out at this time and to make a change or to force a change. And I think it was a really good discussion, and we would come next week again with a more social relevant topic. So join us next week as well. And thank you everybody for joining and participating. We really had a good time, and thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. So we will have this kind of meetings regularly. Almost every week we have one meeting, which is going on Zoom as well as on Clubhouse. And later, the recordings will be uploaded on the Rationalists YouTube channel also. So please try to attend regularly. And if you want to get information about these meetings well in advance, please go to the Rationalist application. There's an app available. You can just go to App Store or your Google Play and search for Rationalist. And there'll be an icon coming with a blue square with Rationalist on the center. Download it and you will get announcements and information about forthcoming meetings and all new videos on that. And also a lot of interesting updates regularly. Thank you very much for participating. Thank you very much for the moderators, especially Shubhi and Baba. And let's end this meeting.
Thank you.